Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no copay. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. This episode of Life's Best Medicine is brought to you by the good people of Keto Mojo and Health Code. Gosh, this is on a personal level. One of my patients I just saw today came in, and her husband recently passed away from a terminal illness, ongoing illness. And, we started talking, and she said, one thing, Health Code, he was able to get that down. And that was the one thing in life he looked forward to. He would get his chocolate macadamia nut and he would mix it with some peanut butter, or she would throw in some extra avocado just to make sure he was getting his nutrition. And he stuck around longer than anticipated, but it's really nice that a company like Health Code could really contribute to his well-being and in his last days, give him something that he enjoys. So I appreciate them for what they're doing and for providing good nutrition, and for people who need it, with avocado oil and coconut oil and whey protein. They're doing such a good job. So it's nice to see that my seniors or people who are really busy can just blend something up. That's my go-to a lot of times if I'm too busy at lunchtime to take much of a break and I'm hungry. That's what I'll do. So Health Code, thank you for sponsoring this episode. And also Keto Mojo, I'm using your product all the time with my patients. I've used it since I started this practice, and you've done such a great job of bringing the community together, giving me another tool to help with patients, seeing if they're on track. The ketones really tell us it's like a lie detector test, and also is a lie detector test for the continuous glucose monitor, because a finger stick is more accurate. So I can see, exactly if their sugars are running low or high. And so Keto Mojo has been my go-to tool. So I'm very appreciative of them reaching out and sponsoring this podcast. So enjoy this episode. And again, there's a discount code that I have with Health Code, and that's MetHealth, METHEALTH, all capital. And also Keto Mojo, I do have a discount link on my website. If you're interested, I'll have that in the show notes also. But thank you for sponsoring this episode, and sit back and enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I have two nutty keto people here that we met in Utah, and they were just like the MCs of the show, and they were just so energetic and so excited and so kind to everyone and so nice to me. And so two crazy ketos, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to see you, and we're really looking forward to the upcoming meetup that we're going to get to reunite in person in Utah in the middle of February. So excited for that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's so fun because the Keto Chow people invited us out to speak, and I've been laying low this year because I've been so busy with my practice. So I've kind of skipped out. So it'll be nice to see you and see the community get together and hear your talk. What are you doing a talk also, right?
Yeah, we are. A lot of what we like to talk about is just about community. That is something that is just so important to us. We're so honored to be able to share our story here on your podcast today. And one of the biggest things that we learned in our own keto journey is just the absolute need for community. I think that as lifelong dieters, we tried to do it in isolation for so long. We gained the weight in isolation. There was a lot of just personal shame that went with all of the weight gains that we had over the years. And even when we would lose weight, it was funny. Joe always says he never tried Weight Watchers. That was like the one diet he never tried, but I tried it like several times for him. And, we would have meetings where you would have to go. And of course we were all just like white knuckling calorie restriction and eating the least amount of food, especially the night before the community weigh-in, right?
Oh yeah, when you have weigh-in, you're like, oh, it's weigh-in week. Okay, I'm gonna be serious. I gotta be serious for the last couple of days, right?
Nothing but water and X-Lax before you get onto that scale. Super healthy plan. But I never got to know any of the people at the meeting. It was just like you were weighing in community, you were kind of hearing a talk, but there was no friendships being made. And we have learned over the years that we live out this way of eating every single day of our life. And it's in the midst, not the absence of just like the stress of life. We're raising kids and we're going to work and there's people cutting us off in traffic. And I mean, there's just all kinds of different stressors. And the difference that community makes, the fact that I can talk to somebody about a job interview, or, we can share just life together. It's not just about what's on our food, but it's, just the conversations around the table.
Joe, you want to jump in here? I know.
Oh, I was waiting for a question. Yeah. As somebody who was obese most of his life, until I found keto, I mean, I was obese. I can remember back when I was 10 or 11 years old, shopping in the Husky section in the store with my mom and always battling, getting picked on.
Yeah, but you're taller than me, man.
Down.
I had to be in the Husky section too, and I was short, so that was really, really rough, man.
Did you have to wear corduroys like Joe?
Yeah, corduroy. I as a matter of fact, that's the first thing I thought of is like, yeah, corduroy. I remember the corduroy pants and all that. I guess we're dating ourselves a bit.
Yeah. But, it was always a battle for me. And I can remember even like in middle school and in high school, I was in the Boy Scouts and I would go away to summer camp, and I looked forward to summer camp, not for all the activities, because I would drop a few pounds and I would come home and be a little bit slimmer, but of course it would end up going back on. And it was just something that I always dealt with. And then when I was 20 years old, I had a debilitating car accident that put me on crutches for 2 years. I shattered my ankle in several places. I was told I was never going to walk again unless I had a fusion or an ankle replacement. And in 1990, ankle replacements were like brand new. So that was kind of like out, like, you're not doing that. And I just ended up putting on more weight as soon as I got off the crutches, because now all of a sudden I couldn't move the way I used to. I couldn't do a lot of the activities that I could do. And I ballooned all the way up to like 280 pounds. And I get down to like 250 pounds. And it was just an ongoing battle. And then 6 years ago, I actually entered into a weight loss bet with a bunch of guys at church. But the weight loss bet was you had to lose percentage of body fat. It wasn't about losing pounds. So we all had to go get measured. And I knew that the only way that I was going to be able to do that well was through like exercise and, more importantly, lifting weights. So I joined a CrossFit. We didn't have a lot of money, and we were fortunate that, and somebody in the church owned the CrossFit. So they were only charging us like $60, which, if you know anything about CrossFit.
Oh yeah, that's great.
That's like dirt cheap. Well, if you know anything about CrossFit and that it's dirt cheap, you realize you cannot run a CrossFit gym when all of your members are from church and only paying $60. Yeah. And so he ended up closing, and I was like, now what am I going to do? Because at this point, I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I always say that my last known weight was 285 pounds, but that was me getting on the scale after CrossFit, or before CrossFit rather. And 6 months later is when I started CrossFit, but 6 months later, I was 3 sizes bigger than when I weighed 285 pounds. The problem was I never wanted to get on a scale again because I never wanted to see 300. It was like, if you don't see it, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, we get in denial. You're like, okay, I'm not going to look now. So like, what happened? Or the other thing, we get lulled into this thing where you're eating terrible and you weigh yourself a few times. You go, I didn't gain that much weight. This is okay. And then all of a sudden, you're like, what happened? Right. 2 months later, you're like, oh my goodness, what happened?
So what ended up happening was the CrossFit closed, and I was like, now what? And there were rumblings of keto in our church. So I said, maybe I'll try this. I had done Atkins years ago. And I lost weight on Atkins until I got to that reintroduction phase.
Carbs again.
And like holidays came around and I had a little bit of carbs, and then down that slippery slope of eating all the bread, the pasta, the grains, the sugar, and everything like that. So I had gone to Rachel and I said, hey, I want to try this keto thing. And she's like, you can do this so long as it doesn't cost our family any extra money.
I'm so loving. That's such a loving thing to say. Like, you can
Yeah.
get healthy, but like it shouldn't cost us any money.
Well, we didn't have a lot of money. And the only thing we had known about eating like low carb, like Atkins style, was the Atkins bars and all of that kind of stuff. And so I got started. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, there was really not a lot of information out there on YouTube like there is today. Dr. Berry had like 3,000 subscribers at the time. So,
And
and,
how long ago was this?
6 years ago.
Oh yeah, so you're like a year ahead of me, maybe a year or two, actually. Yeah.
And what ended up happening was I had a lot of success. I got Rachel to join me, not because I wanted her to lose weight, but because it was going to save our marriage. Because at the time, Rachel was eating 500 calories of oatmeal and yogurt a day. That's all she ate for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Rachel, was it weight an issue for you also?
Weight has been an issue my entire life. My heaviest weight was right around 300 pounds. I, like Joe, did not want to see the actual 300 on the scale. But I was not just not fitting in a size 24 anymore. It was, I needed like a launching pad. I needed to jump into my pants every single morning. I needed like a little vice grip to like help me actually zip them up.
You have to lay on the bed and suck it in and get all.
Oh yeah.
dialed in.
I mean, at one point, Joe was even having to put my sneakers on every single day. I mean, we're talking about like a woman in her 30s, and I'm having to have my husband put my sneakers on because.
Yeah, and you look at where you're going, it's like, it's devastating. And do you come from family histories of cardiac disease or diabetes and obesity?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. My dad actually passed away from a widowmaker heart attack back in 2014. And once we found keto, because like I had said, I was in a very calorie restrictive point because I was just afraid of food. I was afraid of food interactions. I had gained so much weight. I had been on everything from like cabbage soup diet, lean cuisine, leveraging healthy choice. I did Nutrisystem. I did MetaFast. I did Slim Fast. Like literally, I was a career dieter.
Would you lose it and then gain it back?
Oh yeah. And gain more.
Yeah.
And what was really frightening was, I had been for 2 years and I was committed. I did not, outside of our anniversary and my birthday, I never ate more than 500 calories a day.
And she lost 100 pounds doing that.
And I gained back 70, which proved to us that calorie restriction is not the answer, because I gained back 70 pounds, even only eating 500 calories a day, only oatmeal and like a dipping cup of Greek yogurt.
And more importantly, like she was sick. I mean, when you looked at her skin, she was green, her hair was falling out. You can see her bones. She looked emaciated.
And it's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard to see that. And especially when you're working so hard and it's such an effort, and then you let up a little bit and boom, you gain it all. And that's what happens with calorie restriction. That's why it's so hard to understand. As a matter of fact, we did an 1.5-hour podcast discussing how, calorie restriction versus intermittent fasting, carnivore, ketogenic diets, and how, a lot of times they misrepresent the data. And really clinically what we're seeing is when you can maintain your muscle mass, for instance, if you're eating 500 calories a day, you're losing your muscle mass, your body's saying, oh, you're trying to kill me. I'm going to, if we cut your pay in half, all of a sudden you're going to stop, you get rid of the cable and you get rid of all the other stuff, and your body starts slowing down processes like mental functioning and all that.
Yeah. I mean, it was terrible. And I just continued to gain. And so I knew if he was going to be eating like butter and hamburgers and, cheese sauce on it, that like we were going to have a problem in our marriage, because the thought of more deprivation, like I felt so deprived, and I was really in such diet fatigue that I went ahead and joined him, but I only lasted for a month, because the healing process, if you are in that like calorie restrictive mindset, is really hard. I mean, I can say now this is year 5. I'm going into the 6th year of my own keto journey now. And it has taken exactly this long to heal my metabolism. Like it has been a very long journey. I've only recently lost the last 20 pounds that I gained back in COVID, and it took 2 years. So when people say, man, I'm really stalled, I understand that heartache when you feel like you've plateaued in such a unique way that there's no moving forward. Wait, there's healing going on, healing that is so much more important than the size of pants that you are wearing. You have got to give yourself time to heal, and you're going to be very, very happy if you dedicate that time to healing.
So what ended up, excuse me, what ended up happening was after 30 days, I lost like 20 pounds. Rachel didn't lose any weight, so she quit. But now that we look back in hindsight, and this was 6 years ago now, you look back in hindsight and she didn't gain.
Yeah.
And when you go from 500 calories a day to eating massive amounts of burgers and bacon and eggs, she should have gained weight, but all she saw was, you lost, I didn't. She quit, went back to 500 calories. I stayed on keto because I had this success. And that's why I always say, men, a lot of times they lose a lot of pounds in the first month or whatever. Now, a lot of it is water weight because we have so much glycogen stores, but it's still a booster. It still gets you going, oh my gosh, I can do this. Well, I'm a high school lacrosse official, and I was in the middle of the season at that point. And I actually had come home from a game at one point, right when I'd started keto. And I said to Rachel, like, I think this is my last season. Cause at this point I'm on arthritis medication called Arthrotec and Vicodin every single day. And I had been taking that for 27 years, 26 years, every day taking that. And I could not function without it, especially doing games. So I would come home working a set of games on Saturday and literally have to crawl around on my hands and knees for a couple of days to recover. And so I basically said to Rachel, I think this is it. This is my last year. I won't be able to officiate anymore. The doctor said I need an ankle replacement surgery, but that's like a 1 to 2 year recovery. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Meanwhile, I'm losing weight. 6 months in, I've lost about 80 pounds. We're now in the middle of football season, and I'm also a high school football official. And I come home from a set of games on a Saturday, and I just looked at Rachel and I was like, I haven't taken a painkiller and arthritis medication in 6 months. I didn't even realize that I wasn't taking it. And at that point, everything clicked on me, because up to that point, my goal was lose the weight, go back to eating. I'd learned about sugar. I knew enough to stay away from sugar, but, maybe have French fries and that kind of stuff. And when it clicked in me that I was having all of these other health improvements other than the weight loss, I decided, like, this is how I'm going to live. Because now all of a sudden, at the time I'm 45, 46 years old, but I feel like I'm 25. I've never experienced anything like it. And so we made it a lifestyle.
Yeah. And for me, I wanted him to stick with it because of the health results. At that point, our children, actually, when our oldest son recently went with us to Universal Studios, and he was just staring at Joe. And I was like, what's wrong? Why are you looking at Dad like that? And he goes, this is the first time that I am in an amusement park with Dad where we're not pushing him in a wheelchair. And I had not realized that this was the totality of our marriage. I mean, on our honeymoon, I was pushing him around in a wheelchair. So the fact that he had mobility, the fact that I was able to go with him and like us turn in his disabled parking, there was just so much victory. And so we leveraged that. I rejoined him in keto in the new year. And we actually asked my mother to join us as well. And she had been a type 2 diabetic for more than 20 years, but we had lost my father. And I knew statistically, when a couple's been together for 50 years, you lose one, you lose the other. And she's the only person on earth I was willing to fight to make her go on keto. So she was kicking and screaming a bit, but she did go ahead and go keto. And she had been diagnosed with blockages in her heart that was going to require stents being put in. And from diagnosis to when she was going to get into the hospital for an operation, it was going to take a couple months. So I said, just go keto, and then we'll just go to the operating room when we need to. And the day of her operation, they wheeled her back into the operating room, and then they wheeled her right back out. The blockages were completely gone. She did not require the surgery. And within another 2 months, her type 2 diabetes was completely reversed. And so we're talking about a woman in her 70s that is not expecting she's going to get better. She is bracing herself for her worse, for her health to be declining over the years. And that just wasn't the case.
That's amazing. And that's so great to hear. One of my patients, she's in her mid 70s and she went to her doctor and he said, you're old. Don't worry about it anymore. And she was, she flew in from Wyoming. She's amazing person. Now today she's lost 42 pounds. She's out fishing and hiking and doing stuff, and she's a gem. And like you said, the sense of community. My community has grown because of her, because she's such a gem and such a positive light that everyone loves her. And if she's not at one of our meetings, like, where is she? Where is she? And such. It's such an important thing. And a couple of things I wanted to touch base on that you both addressed. One was, like, if you don't see the weight right away, especially in females, that you give up. And I have a guy, one of my favorite guys, he actually came in one day when I was first starting. He actually helped me set up stuff here in my office, actually, one of my first patients here. And he had just got off a liquid diet. And he was doing it, and he lost 52 pounds. I'm like, what are you doing here? You lost 52 pounds. He goes, I hate my life. I'm miserable. I fight with my wife all the time. I'm fighting with people at work. I'm annoyed all the time. And he goes, I'm miserable. And so we put him on a low carb diet, right? And I think in 4 months, he lost 4 pounds in 4 months, but he was working out and he in that time I think he took 6 inches off his waist. He put on a bunch of muscle, and you look at the guy and you're like, you are a different, it was, the scale didn't show it, but when you see him, it was so amazing. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, how much weight have you lost? He's like 4 pounds, because he was losing visceral fat and putting on muscle mass at the same time. And that's probably what you were doing too, is just getting metabolically healthy and trying to get your body. And it just takes time to burn through all that visceral fat that is so hard to burn. And so it's annoying when you see someone else lose tons of weight. Like my wife does that too. She'll lose weight really quickly. I was like, how do you do that? Because she just has subcutaneous fat that she just loses really quickly, not that heavy dark stuff that we got to burn through,
Even when Rachel came back on keto with me in January of 2019, she had done a fast that month. And I said to her, listen, at this point, she was drinking like a slim fast a day. It was a fast for God. And she's drinking a slim fast a day and then drinking coconut water. I'm like, at this point, you're in ketosis. You have to be like, you're only having like 300 calories a day. So let's measure your ketones. And then at the end of the month, come back on keto. And she was like, only if you cook all of my food. I don't want to be responsible for my food. I was like, deal. But at the end of that month, she only lost 2 pounds after another 30 days on keto. And she was frustrated. But then we ended up going clothes shopping. And I remember this so vividly. We go in and she got like a size, I don't know, it was like a size 6 or something like that. And she's like, oh, I need a size 6. And I go get it and I bring it back. And I'm like, well, they don't have any size 6s. So here's a 4. And she puts it on and she's like, this is too big. Go get me a 2. She ended up losing 3 sizes, even though she lost 2 pounds.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the scale's the worst marker. It really is. That's why we're looking at visceral fat and insulin levels and A1C and all these kind of things. And Joe, the other thing too, is, I just had it's so great we're talking about this, because I had Jason Fung and Ben Bickman. These guys are fairly bright guys. And Mindy Pelz, I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Mm-hmm.
She's fantastic. So we talked about it, and I said, hey, I was asking them all independently, if someone has really high insulin, we're really having trouble having breakthroughs, what do we do if they're doing everything right? And generally what we find is stress, not sleeping, and chronic pain. And so part of it is by you taking the initiative, getting your pain better, that lowers the cortisol, the stress hormones, and all those kind of things at the same time when you're losing weight and getting stronger. So it's just this combination of crazy stuff that we see that it's just amazing. Like, I kind of think it's funny, because when people come in with all these complaints, I'm thinking, yeah, it'll help this, it'll help that, it'll help. It's like the magic pill movie with Jason Fung. It's amazing when all this stuff, you feel like a snake oil salesman. Sometimes you're like, yeah, that should get better. Your migraines, yeah, that should get better. Your mood, oh yeah, your brain fog, yeah, that should help that. And they're like, really? It's amazing.
Keto's like duct tape, right? We just keep like, our WD-40, it will just like fix a lot of stuff. And I know that sounds bizarre, but it is true. Like if you give it a try, and we really ask people to journal what they're experiencing, how they're feeling throughout the day, because, if we say that the scale is a devil and the mirror is a liar. So you can't use those two things to measure your success alone. You need to be writing down and journaling things that you notice, because you will wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I actually slept really well last night. Or I woke up this morning and I felt very much energized. I didn't need that cup of coffee in order for me to feel alert during my morning meeting. So there's just a lot of things to observe. I mean, I remember when I realized, I wasn't getting back rashes anymore. There was just a lot of skin issues that I previously had that since going keto, I don't have anymore. We very rarely get sick. I haven't had a sinusitis in like 4 years. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things to behold that we wouldn't want to let go of this health momentum, no matter what size jeans that we're wearing. There's a lot of things that we enjoy that's not even weight loss related.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to discuss when we work with coaching clients and they come in and they're going, well, I'm struggling. And we start talking about how you feel, how is your health doing? How's your mental clarity? And a lot of times they're like, well, that's all great, but well, the scale's not moving the way I want it to right now. And I try to explain to people, like, we've got healing going on. And like you were just talking about, that, well, we have what's called the 80-20 rule. Yes, 80% of your weight loss and your health is related to what you're putting in your mouth, but the other 20% is stress, sleep, and movement. And if we're not focusing on that, you can have a perfect diet and we're going to have some issues. But one of the things I always like to ask them is, like, listen, if you never lost another pound, or if it took you a year to lose another pound, but you've reversed your type 2 diabetes and you're sleeping better and your headaches are gone and you have more energy and you've got more mental clarity, would it be worth it? And sometimes it takes us a while to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had that conversation with my wife. She's been in January and February too. We had no alcohol, no artificial sweeteners. We just really tightened down. And it's funny enough, she's not a gym person. She's never really had weight problems. I think you met her probably in Utah too. And anyway, I'm at the gym one morning working out, and like, there's my wife. I go, that lady looks just like my wife. Oh my goodness, she's here. What's she doing? What are you doing here? She goes, I had so much energy. I just felt like working out. So she's been working out consistently. She likes to hike and do other stuff, but I'm saying going to the gym is not her thing. And she just says, I'm just really enjoying it. And the change, and she even said, if I never lost a pound doing this, it's worth it, just because I feel so good. My mental clarity, I'm more patient with people, and all these benefits that people don't really realize. And that's why I agree with you on journaling, because I've had times when, like last year, I didn't fast at all. I was doing 1 meal a day, basically. It's like, well, I don't need to fast. I'm doing 1 meal a day. And I was plateaued out for the year. And then I said, okay, let me do some overnight fast. Let me try a little like permutations of what I'm doing. And huge difference, huge results, And so sometimes just changing one lever and trying to figure out, okay, I'm plateaued. And you're going to plateau sometimes, but when it's persistent, you go, okay, I got to change something because it's not working. Just like when you're eating 500 calories a day and you're miserable and you're hating life. And, I can identify, because I was having Melba toast and rice cracker with a little bit of, green. I was having green drinks, and I was having the Melba toast with or stuff, just like a little bit of peanut butter on rice crackers, and like, oh, I got to eat something, or I'm going to go into starvation mode, and all this stuff that we all believed was true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and on those tough days where like, man, things are not moving the way that I want them to, I like to recommend that people take a visit to like Walgreens or CVS and just walk up and down those over-the-counter medication aisles and think about what you no longer have to put in your buggy anymore. I mean, we don't buy Pepto-Bismol, and I don't need Beano, and I don't need Zyrtec. And like, there's just a lot of things I don't need and require anymore. And sometimes it's good to just revisit, take a walk down memory lane. They weren't all good memories. A lot of times we have like nostalgia for some of the foods that we used to eat, but I don't have the nostalgia for the way I used to feel inside of my body. And so on tough days, I really recommend, going back and taking a look at like, yeah, life used to be different, but not necessarily better.
Yeah. And I think, there's so much of that. And you just look at it, you look at what people are eating. And, I was just flying back from Kansas City, and the poor lady next to me overweight, and the flight attendants, they don't even ask you. They just go, here's your cookie, here's your stuff. And we're having sparkling water. I was like, hell, I'm not going to eat this, dude. And she goes, I'll take it. And she took my wife's and mine. And, and the whole time she was watching a movie, and she ate the entire 4 hours, right, of flying. And you go, wow, that's just like, without even thinking, like, she's not even enjoying it, because she's watching the movie, and just like, it's just automatic. And you think how many times all of us, we went to the movies and we just eat a huge bucket of popcorn. It's like, oh, the previews are over. I have to refill it now before the movie starts, and it was just normal for us.
Yeah. It's muscle memory. And I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity to have like the platform that we do, that we're not just ordinary people, we're extraordinary people. We're super regular, average people. And we're so thankful for doctors and other, medical people like yourself that's in the space to provide us with this knowledge of the science and like, why are things happening in our body? And I'm thankful that we get to be these average people that get to live out the advice that you're giving in front of people, because I think that it's scary to think about living a different way. And you hear an expert like yourself say, hey, this is what you're going to do, but I'm nervous. I'm scared that it's not going to work. And if I have mopped myself into a corner where I'm in like a 500 calorie a day life and just white knuckling life, I'm thinking, what's next? What's next for me? If I am so great at gaining weight that I could gain 70 pounds on 500 calories, and here this doctor is saying that I need to incorporate like meat and, I mean, this is in butter, this is going to get scary. So I'm really thankful that we have the opportunity to kind of live this keto life out in front of people. And that's really why we started our channel. We were children's pastors, and we would obviously, if you each drop a human being off of your body, people start asking you questions. And so we would explain what we were doing and how we lost our weight. And after about like 30 or 40 minutes, someone would say, well, that's too hard. I don't think that I could actually do that. And we were like, rejection. Yeah. And also I just wasted a whole bunch of time. So Joe suggested, why don't we start making some YouTube videos, and then we could just point people to what we were doing. And if they wanted to have more information, then they could just ask us more.
Yeah. So we actually came home one day from church because we're a blended family, and we started realizing, okay, our kids are going to be moving out soon, and we're going to be empty nesters. And we've never experienced marriage to each other without children, because when we got married, we had a 6, 7, and a 10-year-old. So we didn't know what it was like. We're like, we better figure out how to like each other, or we're going to have some problems. So we started this YouTube channel, and we did a little bit with it, but not too much. This was July of 2018. And then in January of 2019, I started telling Rachel, like, I feel like we should do something with this. And we made a couple more videos. It was the new year. Hey, let's try to help people. And we started hearing about this thing called KetoCon. And so we're like, oh, we'd love to go. And we're like, oh, but we don't have any money and we can't afford it. And we were like, just set it on a video. And a subscriber messaged us and said, hey, I have 2 tickets for KetoCon, and my daughter is going to have a baby and she can't go. We can't go. Can we gift you the tickets?
Wow, how cool.
So we're like,
what
okay,
a blessing.
We're going to go. And we fly out to KetoCon with 250 subscribers. And we're like, okay, we're going to go. And I remember going in, and Rachel's like, somebody's going to notice. I'm like, who's going to notice us? We have 250 subscribers, right? This is silly. But we were really amazed, because when we walked in, we started noticing people walked around the way we did. As somebody who's always been obese, my way of dealing with obesity was, I didn't have friends. I always look down when I walk. I never make eye contact because I'm ashamed of the way I look. I don't know how to talk to people. And I basically became almost like a recluse. And we started noticing there's something different here. People are walking around with their heads going down, but everybody here is thinking the same way about their health. And you have to face it. Like, when you look at keto, a lot of our friends, our family members, our coworkers think we're crazy for not eating bread and grains. In fact, I'm right now studying to be a dive master. And I was just showing Rachel before we got on, there was a thing in there for search and rescue and how to handle stress. And one of the things it says in the book is, hey, you need to eat a healthy diet consisting of complex carbohydrates, grains, fruits, and pasta, because that will make you a healthier diver. And I'm like, it's like I want to bite my tongue. But
You might want to talk to
supposed
Dom D'Agostino about that and see what his opinion is, right? I mean, like they've done so much studies on that. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and the people, oh, that's a healthy way to go. Everyone agrees, and then they do that, and then they're miserable, and that's so frustrating.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was we left KetoCon, and we were blessed to meet Nurse Cindy. And Nurse Cindy said, hey, you guys have a message to say. Now, again, we're just telling people how we feel. And she's like, you have a message. She put us on her live stream on Facebook, and we went home with 2,500 subscribers. But more importantly, we went home with a mission that what keto needs is a community. Keto needs people like yourself and like Dr. Barry that can teach us the medical side of it and why this works. And then we can hold your hand through it and help you with accountability, and just have a community where, hey, I'm having a bad day. Well, hey, we're here too. We know what it's like. And that became our mission, to just create this community where people can come in and experience this together.
And we felt like if people would be willing to put themselves out there, maybe come to a conference, come to a meetup, be willing to be vulnerable, then if they're willing to look up, they would see our faces smiling at them, and that they would not be facing the rejection, but they would be facing a warm welcome. And we thought that, that's what we could provide. That's what we could offer in this space.
Yeah. And especially people who understand, like you understand because you've been there, Tro and I, we struggle, we all go through these things, and it's like, okay, you get it. If I was skinny my entire life, then there's no message. It's just like our testimony, right? When if your life's perfect, it's like, okay, there's no testimony. But when you're in the streets and you're taking, heroin, and then all of a sudden you get, your life changes. People say, wow, look at that. And that's why I started this podcast, as a matter of fact, because, on Low Carb MD, we couldn't really talk about the faith stuff. If I did, people get upset. They go, we just want to hear keto. But I think, well, religion could be a huge part of your stress relief, and it may be something you lean on. And, that's why I see you two being so happy. It struck me right away. I was like, these people are really positive, and, probably having a heritage of being a youth pastor, holy cow, like it takes a lot of patience and a lot of perseverance and long suffering, right? Because the kids, most of them are knuckleheads and don't get it. But then 10 years later, they say, hey, you really helped me, right? You don't see the fruit right away.
It's been a real blessing, and it's been a major transition in our life, because I've been in youth children's ministry for 30 years. And so we just this year, or 2022, we decided to leave our ministry position at church and do this full time. And that was a huge leap of faith. And it really took a shift in our mindset to understand, like, would we still be able to serve children if we moved out of this kids ministry, where we had we have about 500 families at our church that we've served, and then move into this. And I thought, yeah, this is actually a great transition, because we continue to serve children, because if we can help their parents make different decisions, then they're going to feel better. The parents are going to feel better. Grandparents are going to be influenced by it. I mean, my mom is so thankful that she gets to be the same level of like grandmother for my brother's children, who are much younger, in fact, still in elementary school. She's the same grandmother and has the same energy level for them that she did for my 20-something-year-old grandkids. So it's like, we're helping families to, make better decisions. And I still feel like we're being a blessing to children, even though we've, moved in ministry. And hey, the fact of the matter is, a lot of people at church, like, they're sick. It's sad to say, when you talk about like, what is your testimony? It's like, God is so awesome. And like, look how sick I am. But it's almost like that is a permissible thing, like you're not doing drugs and you're not doing alcohol, maybe, depending on like what your belief system is, but like, it's completely fine to be sick in your body, be majorly overweight. And like, we always joke that you can't even meet at church without like dessert, like big trays.
Yeah, everything's donuts and cookies and all that. It's really a hard thing if you're trying to get your life better. And a lot of the pastors are suffering with health problems. And one of the things that's been my calling too is looking at the church and saying, gosh, there's so many sick people. We're all sick and hurting people, right? We just see it. Some of us may see it more on the outside than the inside, but I think so many people in the church have ministry that will die with them because they're afraid that no one's going to take them serious because they're 400 pounds, or no one's going to take them serious because they're not as smart, or they're gluttons, or they're lazy. And so there's this perception. And I've seen so many people say, no, I can't do ministry because I get too exhausted. I can't go. Like, when Joe was in the wheelchair, it's like hard. How are you going to go minister when you can't, you're not physically healthy enough? And then once you're freed up, then you can help all the other people who are struggling, and it's so hard if you're self-conscious, and also intimacy in the marriage too. If you're not self-confident, you don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to engage with people. You're going to, like you said, walk down with your head down and not you don't think you're worthy to be a friend. And so many people would love to be your friend, but they don't know it because you're distant, right?
Yeah. I honestly think that was like a major factor in going into children's ministry specifically, because children were less threatening to me. Like, it was easier, children like are easy to friend, and they accept people at face value, and they don't necessarily like judge a book by its cover. So it was an easier transition for me as somebody who's like, I was the leader, but I was very heavy, and they still loved me. And I felt like it would be too challenging to take that into the adult sphere. Like, I was afraid of interactions with adults for that reason. And so I'm so thankful that even that part of my mind has been helped in keto and like through this journey, because that needed to get resolved. I needed to be able to serve different people, not like in a fear-based mentality, but in strength and in confidence, like knowing that I can be a help and I can be a service, no matter like what age people are.
Yeah, it's just hard. Sometimes you just have to step out and say, okay, I'm going to do this. And maybe when you first started the ministry, you weren't where you want to be, even though you go, hey, I got 20 pounds more I want to lose and all those things. And so sometimes it's hard because we're called because of our scars and because of our shortcomings, And when I'm like saying, okay, I'm going to do a low carb MD and I'm still overweight and I'm still struggling with my stuff and trying to figure, I'm still on the journey. But, people in church aren't the perfect people, right? We're struggling. We're going through stuff too. So everyone says, I'll go to church when I get my act together. It's like, well, that's why you need to go. And if you love people and you get them so that they're accepted, you have that sense of community.
Yeah.
What do you say, Joe?
Oh, so one of the things that I just wanted to add into that was, one of the things we like to do with our subscribers, we always encourage them, please share your story. We have community pages, we have a Facebook group, we have a Mighty Networks group, and we say, please share your story, because your story is important for two reasons. Number one, it reminds you of where you came from. When you can start looking back and writing your story and telling people about your story, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember when that was happening in my life. But more importantly, when we talk about our story and we share with other people, we help people to realize that they're not alone. I think a lot of times when we're suffering with diabetes, or in my case, where you could barely walk and you're in all of this pain, you think nobody else understands. I can't do this because whatever the reason be. But when you start sharing your story, there's somebody else out there right now that's going through that. And when you start sharing your story, they start going, oh, wait, other people get me. And that helps them get along. And I always tell people, like, listen, your story is important no matter where you're at in your journey. You may think you need to lose 100 pounds before you can start telling people that. We'll have people message, I'm not ready to share my story because I'm not at my goal. You don't understand. If you've gone for the first time in your life 24 hours without sugar, that's a win. And we need to celebrate that. We had our live stream last night and somebody said, hey, like, I've been on this for a week and I've only lost 3 pounds and I'm not where I need to be. That's a win. You lost 3 pounds. That's a win.
I have a guy, we were here and we were just talking, and he was, about a month in maybe. And he goes, doctor, and he had tears in his eyes. He said, I got up off the floor. He's 32 years old. I got off the floor by myself without grunting and without having to grab onto stuff. And my whole family noticed. They said, oh my gosh, you just got up off the ground without any help. And I was like, wow. And it was a big moment for them, right? For the rest of us, like, okay, big deal. But you go, wow, that is a huge accomplishment. Because I had to have about 2 people help me before. And I had to roll back and forth and do all this effort. And I'd be sweating by the time I stood up. He said, I just stood up with no effort. It's like amazing, right? That's just such an amazing testimony.
I actually had a coaching client yesterday that I was talking to, and she'd gained a whole bunch of weight last year. And she said she's always been a roller coaster, up and down, always consistently dieting. And so she had come home the end of last October and said, okay, I need to get serious. And so she started following a strict ketogenic lifestyle. And she was like, and then in January, she did beef, butter, bacon, egg. We did a community challenge. She did beef, butter, bacon, and egg. And so she just finished it. And she was like, she calls me up and she was like, I'm not happy. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Explain what happened. She was like, well, I didn't lose any weight during beef, butter, bacon, and egg. And so I'm like, okay, let's back up. Where were you on November 1st when you started? And she was at whatever weight it was. And I'm like, and you are the same weight now that you were on November 1st. And she's like, yes. I'm like, that's a win. And she's like, how do you figure that's a win? And I'm like, you got through the holidays. You got through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and 30 days of eating beef, butter, bacon, and egg. You didn't measure anything, track anything. You ate as much food as you wanted. She was eating well over 2,000 calories a day. And I'm like, and you didn't gain any weight. That's a win.
Sometimes I think you just need a fresh set of eyes. We're so hard on ourselves. It's very hard to change that lens that we see of ourselves. Like it's hard to picture ourselves. That's why, the mirror can lie to you, because you can look at it and not be able to actually see a change. So we're really thankful that we can help, present a new set of eyes for people. Like we see things differently. And when you share your story in community, then you have other people cheering for you and you have other people noticing what's happening, success. And our journey continues to evolve. We have been doing our Monday morning live stream for more than 200 weeks straight. We're really proud of the fact that we've never missed it. I mean, we both got COVID and we still we look
the only thing we did for a month was
sweaty.
That.
We look like
yeah, that's awesome.
But the fact that we did it, we were pretty proud. But it was always called Keto on the Couch. That was the name of it, Keto on the Couch, because we started
it sitting on a couch.
And so in COVID, we moved to the studio that we have. We're clearly not on a couch, but individual chairs. And so people started, ribbing us
a running joke.
What's the couch?
For over a year, it's called Keto on the Couch, and you're not sitting on a couch anymore.
So one of the subscribers suggested that we should rename it Keto Beyond the Couch.
Because we're not on a couch.
Because I think a lot of times people, we lose weight and that's how we measure the success. And now you have a smaller shirt, but you don't have a bigger life. What are you doing with this weight loss? If you're going to lose weight, what are you going to do with it? And so Joe and I felt challenged about that. We, like your wife was saying, I have all this increased energy. So we started doing things that we'd never done before, like paddleboarding, and we've started scuba diving, and we started camping and hiking and doing all of these active things. And I'm so thankful that, we look crazy when we do stuff because we're new to it. Like this is, we don't look like beach buff body, but we're out there doing it and hopefully encouraging other people to start living, get outside of that house. You have increased mobility. You have the ability to get out and move your body. And I remember I was super excited that I could crisscross applesauce, sit on the floor, because that was something that changed kids ministry, right? Because I couldn't sit on the floor and then, not use the children as a step ladder to get back up again. So no one wanted to sit right next to Miss Rachel. So I could crisscross applesauce, jump right back up again. That was great. But what was I doing after Sunday? What was Monday through Saturday looking like? And I hate to say it, but it's so embarrassing. But when we lost the weight, we didn't have to move. That is the blessing and the curse of keto. You can lose weight in keto without moving an inch
for a while.
But that's not something to hold on to. Fitness really is freedom. I'm so thankful for mobility, especially that he's no longer in a wheelchair. We can walk and we can run and we can, do more active things for longer amounts of time. So let's do it. And plus,
and that too. Plus, you're away from food or the threat of food. So if you're out hiking, no one goes halfway through a hike and says, "Oh, I need to eat something. Let's go head back." Right? It's like if you're out having fun, if you're getting a massage. Jason Fung and I were just talking about that. If you're out doing stuff you enjoy, then you're distracted. So it's so easy to fast if you're out hiking all day, or if you're working in the yard and you're not thinking about it. But if you're sitting there watching football, maybe they say every other commercial is food, and you go, "Oh, mate, what's in the fridge?" Right. So it makes it that much harder. And also just getting out in nature and going for walks and enjoying, there's studies showing that how it decreases the stress hormones. It increases the feel good, the oxytocin levels. It's going to shunt you from making cortisol and being stressed with high sugars over to progesterone and testosterone, where we feel better and we get more lean muscle mass. And so, yeah, that's a great point. Is that, but if you're hurting, like when you're hurting, you go, I'm not going to go for a hike or a walk. My ankle's killing me. My back hurts and everything's aching. But when you can go and enjoy, go, hey, I can go and have fun without being in pain. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And there's always a way to do something, even if you do have physical limitations. When I was 22 years old, I learned how to scuba dive, and I got all the way up to advanced. And then I ended up giving up on it because I'd moved to Florida, and then I just kept getting up in weight. And, it's difficult to scuba dive and breathe underwater if you can barely walk down the street, without collapsing because you're not getting enough oxygen. So recently, we've picked it back up. In fact, I got Rachel to do this. It's been a big fear of hers, but she's doing it. I'm 52 years old. And now I'm studying to be a dive master. I'm 52 years old.
Wow,
I have
awesome.
no business becoming a dive master and going and working on dive boats for the fun of it. But all of a sudden, I have got all this energy. But here's the thing about when you go out on that dive boat, and we live in Florida, so we get to dive year round, but when you go out on that dive boat, you're not exposed to all the food. I'm just out there, and then I'm underwater for a couple of hours, and I can't eat. And oh, by the way, if you want an exercise on your calves and on your thighs, go do some scuba diving or snorkeling, because you're going to work your legs on there.
Yeah, that soleus muscle everyone's talking about burning is like 1% of your body burns like all this sugar. It's ridiculous for sugar control. And yeah, it's so awesome. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you, it's funny because the first time, I went scuba diving when I was on my honeymoon in Jamaica, and it was a blast, so relaxing. I'm telling my wife, you got to go. You're going to love it. She's like, oh my, I'm stressed out. And she went, and she was like, that's the most peaceful thing I've ever done. Like being under there.
Rachel.
Like once you're there and you like snorkeling is way more stressful for me because you got stuff going in your pipe and you're choking and coughing. And you go down there and it's like, wow, this is a different world. It's amazing how relaxing it is.
Our dive instructor like really got me in all the feels when we were doing like our first like dive outside the pool and stuff. And he was like, are you ready to spend 25 minutes unplugged where no one can reach you? And it's just you and quiet and peace. And, we talk about it all the time that we know we need to turn down the volume of all the voices, everything around us, the stress. We want to get rid of stress, but like, what are we doing to actually make that happen? And, when we get in a cycle of like, hey, these are difficult times of day for me because I want to eat, or these are, my response to this particular stress is I want to eat, or I can't watch a movie unless I, have something to snack on. And I really wish that I could change that about me. Well, we have to take steps to actually make that happen. And it is possible if we're willing to step out of our comfort zone and try some things new, because a lot of times, we find it's not like we weren't, succumbing to boredom eating and all of this kind of stuff. But a lot of time we totally realized that after we were done with a project, like I would want to go and eat. Really what I wanted was just a change. I just wanted to be in a different location. I sadly only allowed that other location to be the kitchen. But when I changed and said, okay, well, I want to be someplace else outside of my office, outside of what this present moment is, I could be anywhere I wanted to be. I could be walking through the park. I could be scuba diving or swimming or doing something with the dog. I just needed to leverage something different. And when I got outside of what was routine and decided that when I wanted to do something, I could crochet, or I could do a crossword puzzle, or I could put a puzzle together, instead of just going and reaching for a snack, like I enjoyed the creativity of figuring out what do I authentically like doing outside of just eating. Because Rachel's got to be more interesting than just a food eater. Like there's more to me than that.
Yeah. And that's a huge point. I've had people plateau, then they start knitting, or they start doing puzzles, or they start playing bridge, or whatever it is. It's not like you burn that many calories playing bridge. It's that you're just distracted and that gets you away. And so many people were trying to escape the stress level. So we'd take study breaks in college and med school and go get a pizza. And then you go, oh, I can relax. I don't have to study and be stressed out. I can relax. And so we start associating those things. So when you find, hey, there's other stuff, whether it's scuba, whether it's like, so I tell people, find your peace, collect rocks, do something that I don't care what it is. Nobody, even if everyone thinks it's a dumb hobby, then you collect stamps. I don't care if it gives you peace and you enjoy it and you have fun. It's going to distract you from all the other stuff, and that may be your peace more so than just having to have cookies and donuts at night, and so it's amazing. So speaking of which, since this is life's best medicine, I have to ask you too, what's life's best medicine for you? Where do you go when things are dark, COVID times, or when where do you get your inspiration, or where do you go when like you're hitting rock bottom or something's not going great in life? Where do you find your peace?
Well, right now I am finding my peace underwater, but I have to say in general, up until I really decided to pursue becoming a dive master, as silly as this sounds, I find my peace going into our community page and seeing all of the life change happening in our subscribers and in the members in our Facebook and our Money Networks group. When you go in there and you see someone go, I just got back from the doctor and I'm no longer classified as a type 2 diabetic. For the first time, Rachel has a coaching client who is learned to paddleboard, is starting a scuba diving class, has gone and done the skydiving on the indoor flight thing. This is a woman who lost over how much weight?
Over 240 pounds.
Over 240 pounds. And so she's experiencing life. And when I go in and I see that, or when somebody sends me a message going, you changed my life, that's all I need. When we started our podcast a few months ago, we were like, why are we doing this? Why are we starting a podcast? We already upload 5 videos a week, but there are people who listen to a podcast who don't watch YouTube. And we made this decision that if there's one person, just one person who listens to the podcast, who never listens to YouTube or watches YouTube, and we make an impact on them, we could possibly be changing a generation, and that would make it worth it. And that's where I find my peace, in seeing life change in people.
That's awesome. That's awesome stuff.
For me, it's definitely prioritizing the first 2 hours of every single day. They go to God. Like it's just my quiet time with the Lord. And I'm so thankful for it. As a mom of 3 boys, I always put myself last. And we think that is being like very like humble. And that's the best way that we can love our family members, is like we put all of their needs first, we prioritize them, and then whatever is left over at the end of the day, then we have some like time for ourselves. And it really doesn't help us. It really creates a sanctuary of like bitterness and resentment, because you can only go so long feeling like you get the last share of the day before, you don't want to be mad at the people that you're serving, but you just become like feeling like, man, I'm always the last. So I have to get up way early. And I'm okay with that, because I know it's an investment. It's investment with me. I'm able to like just focus on the Lord, have that time for myself to just kind of study and get into the proper like perspective of like what really matters. Because a lot of times if the first thing I see in the morning is what social media says, or it's like what YouTube is talking, or what is the news, and it's always bad news, right? Like nobody ever is like, hey, it's a great day out there. It's usually like something, terrifying. Then my day moves forward in like worry and doubt and comparison and like all of these things that really undermine not just my health journey, but it can undermine my mothering, my being a wife, my being, the woman that God has called me to be. And so I really love the fact that I get to spend those first 2 hours alone with the Lord and just be in a quiet, peaceful place. And it helps me to walk out the rest of my day, not anxious, not fearful, but like just calm.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I was just last night, I was listening to a podcast when I was going to bed, and they were talking about that. And they said 86% of people, the first thing they do is look at their phone when they wake up and look at the news and look at what's happening in the world. And you start out stressed and tense. And so like that just made this morning, as a matter of, it's so funny we're talking about this, but this morning I was at the gym, and recently I've been listening to some pump up music when I'm working out. And I say, I haven't listened to my Jesus music for a while. So, just I was listening to it's called Mended by Matthew West. I don't know if you know that song,
Yep.
but it is so great. I was like, man, what it like, how God sees us in our imperfections and we want to give up. And I was like, man, if everyone just plugged into a song like that in the morning, you just get you realize like, okay, I'm not perfect now, but I'm going to keep striving for that. And, how you see me, not how I see me or everyone else maybe sees me, and I think that's such a huge message. And I just want to encourage you both in that you're doing ministry and you're reaching a lot of people and you're saving lives and you're getting them back to living. A lot of people are dead or they're near death, and so to give them that hope, that's why I started this podcast, to say, let's give people hope who are hurting right now in the middle of, the irony is that in the middle of COVID, when everything was horrible and locked down and you couldn't go to church, you couldn't go to the gym, I'd say, hey, keep the hope, things will get better. And people attacked me on Twitter, like nasty people attacked me and said, how dare you talk about hope right now? This is never going to get better. I was like, it's going to get better. Everything gets better. All those times in your life you thought was going to get worse, and then you made it through those tests. They said you'll fail the class and your life's over. And here we are, and so the more we see that and the more we experience that, it's amazing. And that's what you bring people is hope, to say, hey, look, if someone else is, and I think the big point is this, when you're saying us doctors who are leading the way, but really the biggest impact we've had is stories like yours. Those are the stories, because it's a testimony and no one could say that's not true. What happened to you, when you're limping around, you're hurting and in pain, and now you can reach out and help all these other people and then be a dive pro. It's so cool that you go, gosh, where would you be now? Where would you be if you never changed your lifestyle, if you never supported each other in your marriage and said, hey, let's get healthier together and do this? It's a huge important thing. And also the importance of community. You prove that. All these people, look, you go from 250 people, then it just grows and grows and grows, because people are getting rewarded and they're getting hope and they're getting this community and inspiration. And hearing someone lose 250 pounds, like, how many people can have that impact on someone? It's amazing. And smile your way through and have fun and enjoy life and all that kind of stuff. So for people who want to track you down, how do they find you?
Well, our main platform is YouTube. It's youtube.com/2crazyketos. We upload at least 5 videos every week. We live stream twice, Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern time and Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then we also have a podcast. We upload one, started off with 2. Now it's 1 a week because it's a lot of work. More work than we thought it was. And we have a website, 2crazyketos.com. And also Rachel's pretty active on Instagram, which is just instagram.com/2crazyketos.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I'm just making my way over there. This old dog is trying to figure out Instagram.
Same here. Like, if you figure it out, like, let me know, like, just let me know what we should be doing. Our oldest son started an electrical business, and he's like sending me all of his like Instagram reels. And I'm like, how are you doing this? Did this just come with your generation? Because like,
well, and he's older than where Instagram started, but he's figuring it out. So
yeah, I need them to bring back MySpace.
Yeah, the kids do it. They get it all figured out and they tell us how to do it. No, and that's the etiquette. You don't do it that way, Dad. Here's how I'm like, okay, thanks. Here, take my phone and show me what to do. But it's awesome. It's awesome. It's fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's a new thing and getting out of Twitter a little bit more these days. And, some of the negativity, I just don't deal with it. I just really don't. So I appreciate your really the positivity. When I saw you two, I'm like, who are these people? I didn't know you yet. And I was like, man, these people are wonderful. And you're so kind. And I saw how you were just so nice to everyone there and encouraging everyone. And, it's stressful when people are speaking. And some of the people who are speaking actually were going through some depression, anxiety, and things like that. And you really helped comfort them. And so that's awesome. You guys, you have a gift that way. And I think, just seeing your smiles, and it's amazing. And you go, gosh, that energy and that positivity, that's what people need to see more of, the beauty of a smile and kindness and reaching out and helping others and having that passion is really, really awesome.
Thank you so much. Oh my gracious. I love it. And we're looking so forward to seeing you in person again soon.
I know, me too. We're going to be in a couple of weeks. We're going to be hanging out. I guess I got to finish my talk or they're going to get mad at me. So I'm going to work on that this weekend.
I need a sweater. It's going to be cold.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a little chilly. So, but I'm really looking forward to seeing you both and hanging out with the Keto Chow people. They're good people, and hopefully meeting the community and spending some time together. So it'll be fun.
Love
Yeah.
it.
All right, keep up the good work. And anyone listening, look, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, reach out. This is how you get happiness. This is how you get contentment, is reaching out and helping other people. It's not all about you, but again, like Rachel said, spending that extra time, focusing on what really matters, it's going to make you that much more influential and so much more helpful. So, whatever it is, if you have to dig into faith, or if you want to do yoga or meditate, whatever, wherever you find your peace, find it so that you can give it to other people. And that's the power of community. So thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate it. Have a great weekend or a week, whenever you may listen to this. And keep up the good work. And this is one you're going to want to listen to a couple of times for the wisdom that was shared. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.